Well, it's been a while, but we're back here on When the Game Ends, episode 20. Ben Holden, Mike Carmen. Carmi, how are things in the great state of Minnesota with you?
Things are good. Excited for the regionals to kick off this weekend, and that's kind of been our holdup where we've been the recordings have been fewer and farther between. You've been running around like a madman covering the conference playoffs.
Yeah, I've been a little busy. How about Bucci taking a shot there yesterday at the Gophers? Did you see that? He's like, I don't know if they
No, I
remember the
didn't.
rules. Yeah,
What did he say?
he said they showed the wide shot of everybody sitting in the rink, the film room, and he goes, the Gophers haven't played in 19 days. Hopefully they remember the rules.
Oh wow, typical. It's not surprising he's got his East Coast bias going on already.
He texted me a little bit on Saturday. We were catching up. But anyways, no, you guys are up there in Fargo. My guy's going to Toledo. So we'll see what happens, man. But speaking of college hockey, man, today's guest, he is a legend of the game. I'm going to say it, man. He won the Hobey in 2005, had an unbelievable career at Colorado College. You and I, like so many of our guests on this podcast, we're all connected. The three of us, because of our time together in Lake Erie. You didn't spend a ton of time with Serty. I spent a little bit more the whole year with him, his second year there. But just kind of give us a feel of your relationship and how you guys know each other aside from that.
Yeah, that was I met Serty coming into my right out of college there. One of the first time I met you when I came in to play that season. He was sitting out with a concussion, I believe, at that time. And it's obviously something we'll get into today with him. But that's kind of how I met Serty. Crossed paths throughout the years when we were coaching, when I was coaching full time. When I got done playing, we used to cross paths there as well. Shared some ice times together, shared some groups. But I haven't seen him in a few years now, so it'll be fun to catch up with him.
All right, well let's let you see him right now. So bring him in. There he is. He's in new colors, Carmi. Look at that. He's an assistant with the women's team at St. Thomas, Marty Sertich. Serty, great to see you, man. How are things?
Yeah, great to see you guys too. Thanks for having me. Things are good. Can't complain. Looking forward to chatting with you guys.
Yeah, I can't believe you're wearing St. Thomas stuff. This is weird. This is weird to see you. I mean, it's not surprising because I have seen you in it before, but here we are. We're going to be talking about your career in Colorado College and everything else, and there you are in St. Thomas stuff.
I know. Well, at least I'm not wearing maroon and gold, right, Carms? Then you'd really be surprised.
Oh, we can talk about that later.
I love the purple these days.
Serty, he's been heckled a couple times by North Dakota guys. So, I mean, he's the ultimate teammate on this podcast in that regard. And I think we have Monique Lamoureux coming on. So that'll be a little bit different, but I'm sure there'll probably still be a little North Dakota, Minnesota ribbing in that one.
Well, I'm going to have to tune into that one for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Mario Lamoureux
gold on at one point.
Yeah. Mario Lamoureux had a giant Sioux flag, made sure it was right behind us so he could see it. And we had fun though, but no, man, it's great to see you. And, Carmi mentioned, his first year with you and you and I met in 09-10 and, we'll dive into that, but let's start off with you in this situation. And everyone we do is kind of differently in terms of how we approach the interview and the podcast, but let's just get right to it for you. And when did the game end and how did you know that you were done as a player and it was time for the next phase and the next chapter of your life?
Yeah, I got done playing in 2016 after being in Europe for 6 years. So I finished in Hamburg, Germany in the DEL. I mean, both my daughters were born in Germany. Me and my wife, we were over there. We were in Switzerland for 3 years. We were in Germany for 3 years. And I mean, just had the time of our lives, loved it. But yeah, just kind of coming and going from Minnesota back to Europe with 2 kids. We both kind of just realized like, well, maybe it's time to move on and move back home and try to find the next chapter. So, again, we had a great time. And I mean, it's just unbelievable how it's almost been 10 years since I've been done playing, which is just mind boggling.
Yeah.
So the girls were pretty young when they were born over there, or obviously when they were born. How old were they when you moved back home?
Yeah, let's see. My oldest Peyton was 2, and then Mia was, let's see, she was born in February and we left in April, so just a few months old. So 2 and only a few months.
So they don't really remember the time over there then, unfortunately.
No, not really. No, but they're both dying to get back to Germany. They're so, curious and they think it's pretty cool that they're born there. So we're looking forward to going back there one day and showing them the towns that they were born in.
Yeah, Germany. I've never heard a bad word about anybody that's over there. I mean, Stowe is still kicking the tires over there. I don't know how he's doing it, but it's everybody
either.
love playing the Dell that comes over there from the North America.
Yeah, Germany it was such a great experience. I mean, there's a lot of, non-German guys there too. So it almost kind of has an American League feel. But just, yeah, awesome buildings, just great food. Like I said, me and my wife, Becky, just absolutely loved it there.
So, Serty, what kind of things did you go through when you initially decided that you had to do what was best for you and your family, and all the respect in the world to that? But what were some of the things that you had to go through mentally? I'm sure more than physically, or maybe there were some physical aspects to when you retired and you had to deal with after.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably halfway through that last year, 2015, 16, I realized this is probably going to be it. And I honestly, I didn't know what I was going to do. But, for some reason, it drove my wife nuts because I never panicked. And she was like, what are you going to do? And I don't know. I guess I just kind of trusted that something was going to come up. I reached out to, I think, every coach, men's and women's in the MIAC that season, just saying, hey, I'm Marty, I'm playing, but I'm going to be done. Wondering if you're looking for an assistant coach. I knew I wanted to stay involved in hockey, and just trying to get my foot in the door somewhere. And then, only a couple people responded with, anything that seemed worthwhile. And one of them was Tom Polkowski, was the head coach at St. Thomas, and said, yeah, we're looking for an assistant. So anyways, it was a combination of that. And then also I had experience kind of running some youth hockey camps just here and there over the years with my dad, my brother. So I, kind of knew how to do that a little bit. So I also started with just a couple groups in the summer, and then that turned into, keeping me busy too, with Tradition Hockey is the name of my little program that I've been doing kind of on the side. So yeah, that was the journey that's led me to post professional hockey life.
So you knew you wanted to be a coach right away. That was 100%. You're like, I want to get into coaching.
Yeah, my dad was obviously my high school coach growing up, and then he switched over to the women and coached Bemidji State for a while, and loved it. And then, of course, my uncle Mike was the longtime coach at UMD and Michigan Tech. So certainly, hockey coaching was in my family, and I grew up with it. So, I don't know. I don't remember thinking about too many other options other than coaching or staying involved in hockey somehow. It's just, I've just such a passion and love of my life. So, like I said, I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I just kind of trusted that something was going to work out. And so far, so good. I'm super grateful to still be doing it.
I'm sure Ben's got a bunch of trivia facts for you about your family and the coaching lineage and the hockey family that the Sertich family is. But I do one more question I did want to ask you about the coaching. So you were reaching out to men's and women's coaches. You could have gone either way. Was it an adjustment going from, essentially having coached probably a lot of boys in your camps over the years, some girls, but coaching women's hockey full time? Did you have to change your mentality, kind of how you thought about the game, how you approached coaching men versus women?
No, not really. Because I've actually never really coached men. I mean, I've coached, my camps growing up. I was helping with young kids, mites and squirts and stuff. So I don't really have, any, high school boys or college men to compare it to. So, no, I feel like, right from the get-go, I don't know. I certainly have played for some great coaches and paid attention to that, and took, some of the good things from all these coaches along the way to kind of try to, form how I coach, and, try to stay true to what I believe in. So yeah, to answer your question, no, there was no adjustments as far as that goes.
The reason I was asking that was because I found when I was done playing and I was doing the camps and stuff, working at MAP and whatnot, and you'd work with the high school boys versus the high school girls. And I found almost to a T, the girls listen so much better and were a little less squirrely to work with. So I always found that interesting. And so that was why I was asking the question.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've heard that a lot from people. Yeah, I mean, the girls are just great. I mean, at our level, they're so competitive, and I mean, girls hockey and women's hockey has grown so much, all over the world. I mean, especially in Minnesota. And obviously, we're lucky to have so much, female hockey in Minnesota. But yeah, they're absolutely awesome to work with.
Yeah, look at Mark Johnson. I mean, look what he did in his program the other day, and in winning another national championship. Marty, I learned this past weekend about St. Thomas more than I had ever known, and even last week doing the CCHA final. What a great spot to be in, though. I mean, I said to Rico, I said, there's 3 programs in college hockey, men's, but they could also be on the women's side, so you can share your input there. But you guys, Augustana and Arizona State, at least on the men's side, I think are absolute sleeping giants. Tell us about the situation that you guys have there as a program. You made that transition from D3 to D1 in all your sports. What's that process been like, and what's it been like to go through it as a coach with the young ladies you're coaching?
Yeah, it's St. Thomas is a really, really cool spot. Just a lot of exciting times at St. Thomas, and I mean, I'm so grateful to be a part of it. But yeah, it's just funny. You never would have. I started coaching 8 years ago at St. Thomas in the MIAC D3, just a part-time, role for me, but never would have thought it would turn into this. So it's been pretty cool for me to be a part of the transition and be, see it in the D3 world. And we had great success there. And then to transition, on the women's side, specifically right into the WCHA, I think it's safe to say the best league in the country. And just, be back at, playing against Wisconsin and Minnesota and Duluth, the teams that I played against in college. But yeah, we have a brand new rink opening up this September, the Lee and Penny Anderson Arena. I mean, obviously, if you haven't heard about that, it's going to be, maybe one of the nicest college facilities in the country. So beyond grateful, for that in our program. And yeah, it's just a unique setup at St. Thomas. 6,000 kids, 10,000 with undergrad. Both the hockey programs, I feel like, are in a great spot, moving in the right direction. And, like I said, there's a lot of buzz on campus right now. The men just finished up, had a great season. We had a real good second half, and we're feeling really, really optimistic about our future too.
Yeah, Ben was talking about that because he was doing the CCHA finals last weekend or over the weekend here. And I was looking at the roster and the names, and a lot of those kids, they came through MAP when I was there. They were kind of transferring back for their senior year or their 5th year option as well. And really just fun for those guys to get the opportunity to come back and be leaders and kind of start that program off at the beginning of the D1 roots. And I mean, just to go to a conference final and the 2nd year D1, right, for the guys?
4th.
Yep.
Is it that many already? God,
yeah, 4.
Fact check myself. But no, to be going to the conference finals already is awesome. And I mean, I'm looking forward to the I-94 rivalry with the Gophers just continuing to build. That'll be fun.
Yeah, I think it's going to turn into a great rivalry on both men and women. We've played the Gophers a ton in the last 4 years and had a couple close games. Took them to overtime a couple years ago. So, like I said, we're getting there. We've got a lot of work to do still, to compete consistently with them and some of the other big dogs in our league. But I think there's going to be a lot of people like you, Carms, that are going to be excited to watch the Gopher Tommy rivalry in the years to come here.
Yeah, if you'd asked me that question, 10 years ago before the Big Ten came into play, I'd be like, I don't know, I get away from the traditional rivalries, but I've learned to appreciate the new rivalries and developing new hatred for some schools I used to share with North Dakota. So looking forward to more of those coming, but it'll be fun.
Yeah,
that would be Michigan.
Yeah, that would be Michigan. So
well, Serty, let's backtrack a little bit, man. Roseville, Minnesota, where you grew up. Carmi, here's a fact for you. This is the 2nd Minnesota Mr. Hockey Award winner we've had on this podcast. The other being Paul Martin, who I think was he in front of you or after you, Serty?
Yeah, he was 1 year before me. So he was 2000, I was 2001. Yep.
Yeah. So I kind of want to go down a little bit of the memory lane stuff and kind of work through your career. Let's start in high school. I mean, with your family, I did not know your grandfather was who he is at Colorado College. Until I did some reading this morning. Obviously knew about your dad, and obviously your Uncle Mike, and all the people that have coached in your family. But what was typical for you as a kid growing up? Like, what was life like growing up in Roseville, Minnesota? And just kind of walk us through some of the highlights of what you recall from the childhood days.
Yeah, I mean, I was really lucky. First of all, I had my brother is a year and a half younger than me. So we were, real close in age and had just tons and tons of battles, through the years. And so we pushed each other in all sports really. But we grew up with some incredible families and kids in Roseville that were just, absolute rink rats and baseball players and golfer. I mean, that's all we did was play sports all year round. And worked out in the summer and just really grew up together. So I am so lucky that we grew up in the time we did and, had really good teams in Roseville, surrounded by great players and, obviously culminated in a successful senior year. But I mean, my dad made a rink in our backyard. Wasn't a really big yard, had a tree right in the middle. But I mean, just, honestly looking back, playing in the backyard, I mean, those were the best memories. I mean, we would get done with a high school hockey game. I don't think this happens anymore, but I mean, we would play a high school hockey game at Saturday night, 7:00, game would be over by 9. And we would, guys would come over and we would skate in the backyard. Somebody would put the pads on. We would play till 1 or 2 in the morning, after playing a high school game. And it's like, I don't even remember eating after the game. And maybe we'd eat frozen pizzas at 2:00 in the morning. But it was just, I don't know. I mean, unbelievable. I wish I could do it all over again. It was so much fun. But I think that kind of just set the tone for the, to here I am today, still super passionate about the game. I love it. And that's my memory.
Roseville's got a great high school barn, Benny. Not super big, but seats on both sides. I imagine you guys had that place rocking. Who were some of the rivals for you at that time with Roseville?
Hill Murray and White Bear is those two. My sophomore year, we lost to Hill Murray in the section finals. They scored with like 25 seconds to go to beat us. My senior year, we lost 2-1 in the section finals to White Bear, Tim Hambley, and the Bears. So incredible games against those two teams throughout the years.
Yeah, I was curious too. I don't know when, because Minneapolis and St. Paul now, they've both become so consolidated with their hockey programs. They've lost out on all the little pockets of schools that were there. I mean, you look at St. Paul used to have Harding and, the North St. Paul High School. I don't know if it's the same as Minneapolis as St. Paul is. I didn't know if you guys had any battles with any of those schools being so close in proximity, but they might've been kind of on their way out already at that point.
Yeah, maybe more in youth hockey too, but you suppose when once you get into high school and then you see a lot of those kids go to private schools and, but yeah, certainly, the schools like Stillwater had really good teams in youth hockey, but in high school it was definitely White Bear, Hill Murray were the two big ones.
Did you ever feel? I know you ended up going to USHL. You went after your high school, correct? You didn't leave senior year. You stayed all 4.
Yep, 3.
Did you ever have pressure to leave? I'm sure you did before that. What was kind of the factors with you staying to finish out all of high school at home?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember any pressure, and if there was no way I would have. Just the things I mentioned before, just the guys I was surrounded with, and my brother and my dad was the coach. I mean, playing high school hockey for Roseville and the chance to get to the state tournament was like the greatest thing in the world. I never, and I probably weighed about 115 pounds back then. So there was nobody knocking on my door to come play in the USHL or the Ann Arbor program or whatever. But even if there was, there's no way I was a Roseville Raider for sure.
Well, and you got Mr. Hockey out of it too. So definitely the right call. That's a prestigious club to be in.
So I want to follow up right there, Serty. I should have wrote the quote down that your dad, I think it was your dad in something I read, and it talked about, we know how, what your measurements were and are when you played. You had to play the game differently though, right? How did you approach that, man? Like, how did you go into games thinking I'm going to dominate this way, or I'm going to do this, or how did you approach the game being an undersized but very skilled and effective player?
Yeah, I mean, I think I learned, at an early age that I'm going to have to protect myself. Certainly had the puck on my stick quite a bit. You could check in Pee-wees back then. So, I mean, that's kind of my first memory of like, okay, wow, guys are running at me. So, you learn the hard way. I mean, I certainly took, a ton of big hits growing up, but you learn how to protect yourself. You learn how to keep yourself out of dangerous areas and move the puck. I mean, gosh, again, I go back to being surrounded by good players. I mean, we learned how to move the puck, what a give and go is. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess that was my mindset. We were, we played in the backyard. We did have good puck skills and as a smaller guy, I knew the summers were huge for me. That was my time to, to pick up a step and get stronger. Because, every time you move up a level, whether it's Pee Wee to Bantam or, the USHL to college, like if you're not picking up your step in the summer and getting stronger, somebody's going to catch you.
It's funny. I watched, you guys can laugh at me if you want, but the movie Youngblood came on last night and I started watching that. And the scene when he goes back home and leaves the team and his brother trains him, and because he was a smaller guy too, it just made me think of that. Your decision to go to CC, and you and I spent a good amount of time together. I remember talking with you a lot when we were together. Again, I didn't know the history of your family at Colorado College until earlier today, and doing my homework like Carmi and I do on these shows. Was that something that was a decision made far in advance? Like if you got the opportunity, that's where you were going? I'm curious about the recruitment process and those things with you, Serty.
Yeah. It's funny. It really wasn't. I mean, both my parents went to CC. My grandpa, like you mentioned, played there.
Yeah.
But when I was in high school, I mean, I was a big time Bulldog fan. My uncle had been the coach for a long time. I always wanted to play for UMD. I mean, I was a diehard Bulldog fan. And then my junior year of high school, he left and went to Michigan Tech. And so kind of at that point, I was back to, I would go anywhere. I was open to go anywhere. And my junior year was decent, but I didn't have anybody calling me after my junior year. My senior year is when it started to get some phone calls or whatever. And really there was only 3 schools that were really interested, halfway through my senior year. And that was Minnesota, Colorado College, and then Michigan Tech, because my uncle was at Michigan Tech. So I took visits to those 3 schools. And it's funny. I absolutely fell in love with CC because of the guys and the coaching staff. Had nothing to do with that. My dad went there. But yeah, just felt so comfortable there. And that was about it.
Okay.
Do you think CC's sheet was the biggest Olympic sheet in the country?
Yeah, that's what they call a true Olympic size sheet, I think.
Yep.
I don't know. Now it's becoming obsolete. Everybody's shrinking their rinks now.
Yeah, it's funny. Mariucci's obviously before they shrunk it down. It was a pretty big bowl there. But I remember the first time going to CC as a freshman, and I'm like, is this legal? Like, how big is this ice sheet, man? Like, and you guys had some guys that could wheel. You and I didn't cross paths in college, but you had Billy Sweat back then who could just use that ice to his advantage and wheel around a million miles an hour. And yeah, so it was always seemed like the biggest Olympic sheet you could possibly get on.
Yep. And then you top that with a little bit of altitude, too. So that's why, when the Gophers would come to town, they'd be huffing and puffing a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, just for
everybody
record,
was
freshman year, first trip there ever, we swept you guys. So
okay, all right.
Hey, the
but Serty wasn't on the team, right?
Now I feel like so many of the college teams, they all have either an altitude biking room, or they have the mass where they can train for it the week leading up. It's crazy. It takes all the home ice advantage out of it.
I know, it's incredible how times have changed. Yeah, a little bit different when we were playing, right?
A little bit different.
So Serty, back to CC. So you mentioned you didn't really know anybody there. You obviously didn't know. I don't think you knew Peter Sena. I mean, who you ended up playing with. Was there anybody on that team that you knew, or did you just literally walk in there not knowing anybody on their team your freshman year?
Yeah, I mean, the only guy I really knew was Jesse Stokey, who I played with in Sioux Falls the year before. And so then we both went to CC the same year, and Jesse was my roommate for the first 2 years. Other than that, just guys that had played against in the USHL that year. But no good buddies, nobody else from Roseville or anything. But yeah, it was just an incredible group of guys, though. And, some of my best friends still to this day.
Yeah, I should have researched this more, but I'd be hard pressed to believe that there are 2 guys from the same program that within a 4-year span, or actually a 2-year span, won the Hobey Baker. I mean, we've had Blake Jeffrey on. He came on the show and talked with him about winning it. I know it's an individual award, and you're probably going to be a typical hockey player and say, "Oh, I had great line mates and this and that." But to be one of those guys, Marty, what's that mean to you now? And we're 20 years from it, man. What's that mean to you now when you hear that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really special, and it does kind of every year passes. Sometimes it kind of hits me like, holy smokes, I can't believe that happened. But yeah, I mean, we had a really good team that year. Brett Sterling was my line mate. He led the nation in goals that year. Just a special, true goal scorer. So I mean, certainly, we had a great year together. But yeah, I mean, so many memories from that year. Making it to the Frozen Four and. I don't know. Sometimes it's like I don't even know what to say. It's hard to believe, but certainly a pretty special group to be a part of.
64 points you had that year, 27 and 37 and 42. And, it was pretty cool too. I didn't realize that Sterling was up for it along with David McKee, the goaltender that was at Cornell. They always seem to have good goalies. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And, do you still stay in touch with a lot of those guys? Are you still close to a lot of those guys you played with?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially the guys in my class, we still talk all the time. And there's a lot of CC guys in the Twin Cities that I run into all the time. Some of them, their kids are doing some of my camps or whatever. So that's kind of a fun way to reconnect. But yeah, that season 04-05, our team just recently is being inducted into the CC Hall of Fame next month. So nice. It's going to be fun to go back to the Springs and see all those guys. A few of them I haven't seen in 20 years. So yeah, great guys.
That's this summer. You guys have that?
Yeah. Next month, actually later in late April. So
it'll be fun. Get some golfing down there.
That's possible, but it's probably going to be a quick trip for me. I don't even think I'm going to bring my clubs, nor do I play that often anyways.
Quick in and out for you.
Yeah.
So, you leave Colorado College, you signed with Iowa. Was that for you? How many teams were you entertaining at that time? Kind of what was the I guess your decision-making process after senior year?
Yeah. I mean, I was undrafted, obviously. I think there was 3 teams that I could have signed with, Dallas being one of them, LA and Philly. And so, yeah, I just, to me, I was just pumped to have an opportunity to play pro hockey. And, my agent at the time, Neil Sheehy, said, that he thought Dallas was the best organization to be a part of for me at that time. So yeah, signed with Dallas and, I mean, just unbelievable going to training camp and, skating with guys like Madano and Lindros and Zuboff. And I mean, you could go on. And then I loved living in Des Moines for 2 years, playing for the Iowa Stars, only 4 hours from home, and played in a great rink, had a great coach, great experience.
Yeah, I remember that first. Well, for me, it wasn't even the first training camp with Colorado, but the summer camp. You go out for the development stuff, and I remember coming into the locker room, and Forsberg was in there trying to make a comeback still with his foot, and I was just completely awestruck. I'm like, oh my God, like I'm in the same locker room as Peter Forsberg.
Yeah,
pretty crazy. You look back watching these guys as a kid, right?
Yeah, it's. I mean, I know it's unbelievable. I feel the same way, Carms. It's almost like, yeah, I was probably too awestruck. You're there for a reason. I probably should have believed in myself a little bit more. But yeah, it was pretty fun just kind of looking around, seeing some of those guys.
That's easier said than done, though, what you said there, not being too awestruck by the guys. So, so then you ended up in Lake Erie. That's where we crossed paths. Talk about your experience there. Obviously, we're all familiar with Quinny and his coaching there. We both played for him. Like I said, when I came there, I know you were going through some stuff with the concussions. Let's talk about kind of that experience, how that affected you, and kind of what your thought process was during that time. Had you had concussions prior to that?
No, I hadn't. And I really hadn't. I was lucky pretty much my whole life with injuries wise. I never missed a game in college. I missed a little bit in Iowa with a knee injury. But yeah, that was kind of my first really true experience of like being out of the lineup. And of course it's no fun when it's related to the head. So yeah, I mean, I think my first year there, I only played in 25, 30 games. And then the following year, I was just so excited to kind of be healthy again, and things were going well. And I think maybe about 50 games in, got another one. So it was, I loved Cleveland. It was a really fun league, fun to live in a different city. But it's just, no fun dealing with those injuries. And that kind of, made me think, well, maybe it's time to look into playing in Europe.
Well, that's what's crazy is, they're doing a lot better job protecting the guys now. But when we were coming through the AHL, I mean, getting hit 3 seconds late was not out of the realm of possibility. In fact, you almost needed to expect it. I got absolutely crushed my rookie year. We were playing Hamilton, to split my nose open right across the front here because I was watching the puck and I got hit 3 seconds later. So, I mean, it's good they've changed the rules to get away from that. But how were your concussions caused? I don't even know. That's why I was gonna ask you.
Yeah. The first one was, I mean, it wasn't like a vicious hit or anything. I think I just kind of got crunched against the boards in the right spot. It happened at Syracuse. I was no penalty on the play, so it's not like it was a dirty hit or anything. I probably just at the last second couldn't get my hands up to protect myself. And then the next year it was just an open ice hit, and I mean, to be honest with you, I had my head down again. It's not like it was a dirty hit, but there was probably plenty of those that happened throughout my lifetime that just didn't get me on the right spot, and that one happened to do it. And that's the way it goes. It's just with the way how fast and how strong guys are. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes it's surprising there's not a concussion every shift, but it's those are my two experiences.
What was your rehab like for that? Like in terms of like severity, were you in a position at one point where you had to be like, hey, any light is bothering me, or I got to be in a dark room, I can't watch TV? What was your recovery like with those?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I never had problems with light. And honestly, looking back kind of in hindsight, as I've, done a little bit of research and kind of figured out, more of my own body and head, I don't think my concussions were that bad. I think I had some lingering, issues, almost kind of anxiety where, so I was analyzing myself, nonstop. Like, is that a headache? Is that, where I almost kind of worked myself into I don't know, almost worked myself into ongoing symptoms that lasted a lot longer than I think they should have. But no, it's honestly led me on an interesting path where I've kind of, learned about, some breathing techniques and just things to kind of control anxiety and recognize it. And so, I don't know, sometimes things happen for a reason, and, maybe that's, helped me kind of live a healthier life, because I have no problems whatsoever from before, and I'm certainly grateful for that.
That's good. I remember. Yeah, we're both glad to hear that, Serty. I remember sitting with you a lot on the bench in practice that year, and I mean, I felt so terrible for you. I just want you to know that, for whatever that's worth. But like when you're in those moments, man, as an athlete, I know from being around sports all the years I have, that athletes hate sitting out. It's the hardest thing they have to do. How did you manage that part of it, man? Like, how did you get through that part of it? Because you tell us, was that the worst problem you had with the concussions was during that year?
Yeah, definitely. No, and thanks for your thoughts, Ben.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
You're welcome.
No, it's I don't even know how you do it. I mean, I don't remember, but it really does. It stinks. You go to the rink and, you don't feel like you're, really a part of the team when you're not putting the gear on and talking to the boys and, having those moments after a game where you're beat up and the wins and the losses. And, but again, it's all part of it. I mean, everybody goes through it, and it's almost, who's lucky enough these days to not go through injuries, whether it's a head or a knee or shoulder. So, I don't feel bad for myself. Like I said, it's it's part of life, and it maybe if anything, it helps me as a coach when, players on our team are hurt, to be able to relate with them a little bit and say, gosh, I know this stinks. I've been there, and there's nothing you can do except for go through it and figure out a way. Everybody's different. Figure out a way that you can get through it, and use it as a tool to build resiliency. So
yeah.
Do you think without the concussions you would have tried to stay in the AHL, North America hockey, whatever, NHL aspirations still, or were you already kind of at the point where I'm like, hey, I want to go try something else, I want to go overseas?
Yeah, that's a good question, Carms. I don't know the answer to that. I suppose if I would have stayed healthy that second year in Cleveland and finished strong, who knows? My contract was up, so who knows what that would have led. Maybe there was another opportunity, within Colorado or maybe in a different organization. I did know that I always wanted to go to Europe eventually. My dad played in Germany for 3 years, so I was aware of, that progression in a pro hockey career. And, I love traveling in general. So the thought of living in Europe was really exciting whenever that came. So, it's interesting, to think back. Who knows what would have happened? But, again, I ended up in Switzerland, and that was incredible. And so sometimes it's all about timing and being in the right place. So,
yeah, we had Andrew Ebbett on one of our first couple. What episode has Ebby been? I don't even remember now.
I think he was like 8 or 9, I think, somewhere in there. Yeah.
But he was just singing the praises of playing in Switzerland, which I can only imagine how incredible it was. And just like the travel, and when I say travel, I mean lack thereof for games, and being in your own bed most nights and almost every night, and just the scenery and the people and how passionate they are about hockey. So I'm assuming you had a similar experience.
I did. Yeah. Switzerland was, some of the cities in Switzerland are like, you got to be kidding me. Like, this is too good to be true. Just how beautiful it is. But yeah. And the hockey, there's only 2 non-Swiss guys, imports, that were allowed when I played. It's probably still the same. So certainly there's a lot of pressure on the imports to produce, but incredible crowds, incredible rivalries, kind of like a mini soccer atmosphere where people are on their feet chanting, sparklers in the crowd. I miss it for sure.
You'll have to bring that to St. Thomas's new arena.
Yeah,
they built a standing only section for the students.
Get the horns, the soccer horns. What do they call the Valahuela or Valenzuela, I think, or something like that?
Something like that. Yeah, that's a good idea.
I know what you're trying to say, Ben. I can't think of the word either.
Yes. Valavuzu, or I don't know, whatever. Let's move on. Serty, so, obviously college, you played for 4 years. You were with 2 teams in the American Hockey League for just a couple of years each. And then 4 years in Switzerland, and I think 3 you had in the DEL. So this might be a tough question. I like to ask guys this. Like, was there somebody, wherever it was there somebody that you leaned on when a situation was tough? Like maybe it was a former college teammate 6 years later. Did you have somebody or a couple guys like that throughout your career?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I certainly had at different points of my career, had different guys. In the American League, my good buddies from college that I was playing against all the time, Brett Sterling and Joey Crabb, they were in Chicago.
Yeah.
Certainly we stayed in touch, and we played each other 10 times that year. We were always bouncing stuff and advice off of each other. In Europe, Tom Preissing was playing in Switzerland as well. He was a senior when I was a freshman at Colorado College, a good friend of mine to this day. He was always, kind of a comforting friend, when we're a long way from home, over there. And my wife was with me the whole way. So, of course, she was always, my better half, and always helping with, decisions on where, should we stay? Should we go? How's life? Stuff like that. So, certainly lucky to be surrounded by a lot of great people in my life.
You mentioned Joey Crabb. He came down from Washington when I was in Hershey, towards the end of my last year in Hershey, and wasn't around him a long time, but he's a great guy. He was a great teammate, great guy to be around, a lot of fun. I can see why he would have been a guy you would have kept in touch with.
Yeah. Joe was, we were in each other's weddings. We were the same year at CC. What a character, off the ice and on the ice, just a tough, great 2-way hockey player. I don't know how many NHL games he played, but he, certainly played a bunch, scored some goals, played with the Leafs, played with a bunch of teams. So, great guy. We'll be looking forward to seeing him next month when we gather in the Springs.
So, yeah, then we were, Ben kind of touched on this a little bit. We talked about your transition out of the game and what that was like for you. Was there ever a point, maybe in like the first year you were done, you were trying to figure out the coaching thing, what you were doing next, where you were like, God, I miss playing, or like, I what am I doing right now? Like, this doesn't seem to be clicking yet. Was there any of that first year you were done?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you hear people say play as long as you can. And it's so true. There's nothing like playing pro hockey. I mean, what a job, right? So, even though I knew it was the right decision, once you get back home and October, November rolls around and you're like, geez Louise, boy, do I miss playing. But again, I think that's natural. I'm sure everybody goes through that. And it certainly, coaching helps, because those Friday and Saturday nights coaching, then you get to have that fire, that competitive fire, that kind of, it's nothing like playing, but it's certainly a close second.
Yeah. We talked. I actually brought that up on a couple of our episodes, but going to the Gopher games, like obviously I'm not coaching or involved with the program at all, but my wife and I have had season tickets for the last 5-6 years, and going to the games every time when we're there in time to see the anthem. Whenever the anthem is going on, in my own head, there's a little piece of me that's like, God, I wish I was out there playing right now. Even to this day, it's like the chills of like when the anthem's going, and it brings you right back to when you were standing out there, listening to it.
Yeah. Oh gosh, there's probably about 3 of those moments each game. Probably the first one is like getting to the rink a few hours before the game. And then, when you see the players are lining up for warm-ups, I always get the feeling of, oh my gosh, I have all this, stress built up and there's nothing I can do about it. I can't go out and warm up. And yeah, the anthem's one for me too, Carms. I always get the goosebumps. Like, man, this is fun.
So yeah, I don't think that's ever going to go away.
Yeah, I'm sure it won't for any of you guys. So from Carmi mentioning, going to the Gopher games, like you're talking about all these guys you played. I mean, you guys had a wagon at CC, man. I mean, how did Scotty Owens assemble those teams, man? Because you guys had some unbelievable teams there, Marty.
We did, yeah. I mean, my freshman year, it was probably the best team out of the 4, to be honest with you. I mean,
okay,
Tom Pricing, I think, set a single season goals scored by a defenseman that year in NCAA history. I mean, Noah Clark and Peter Sena. I mean, those guys were unbelievable. We had, Joe Cullen was a senior. He had an incredible year. And my class was really good. They did a good job bringing in good players and lots of other support players. The goaltending was, Curtis McElhaney was a 2-time All-American.
Yeah.
You guys know all about him, but
yeah,
it's, you don't realize it back then in the day, but now, especially as a coach, I mean, as I'm trying to build the best women's team, it's not easy. You got to find the right people at the right time, that fit into your culture and your program and your university. And they did an incredible job. Owens and Coach Bonnet, Coach Bazine, who's still coaching at UMass Lowell.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and great guys off the ice too. I mean, it's I don't know if how common it is these days, but man, we really did. We were lucky.
That actually brings up something I thought of about halfway through the interview. So going from D3 to D1, you're looking at recruiting and building a team. How has that changed from D3 to D1? Has it changed? Has it become easier to attract talent? Like, kind of talk about that difference for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's you can't even compare them. First of all, when we were at the D3 level, it was mostly girls from the Twin Cities that, I mean, St. Thomas luckily has had a great history in the MIAC where, once players realize, well, I'm not going to go D1, a lot of players were reaching out to us saying, hey, I want to come to St. Thomas. So, they had done a great job of building that where it was almost recruiting itself because St. Thomas was one of the best teams year after year. So moving to the D1 era, first of all, I'm doing a lot more recruiting now than I did at the D3 level, and traveling for it. And we still are Minnesota heavy, and we probably always will be. But yeah, you're recruiting kids a lot younger. Now we're watching, sophomores in high school. You're getting ready to reach out to them after their sophomore year of high school. We certainly want to build our brand and expand outside Minnesota. We have some Canadians coming in and on our current team, and we've had a couple of Europeans in the last couple of years. So, like similar to all the other top programs in the country, we want the best players and best kids that will represent St. Thomas no matter where they're from. And it's part of the puzzle of putting together a good program.
Well, the new facility is only going to help with that too. Obviously, that's going to be a great recruiting tool for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
I had one other follow-up question just when it comes to the recruiting stuff. The travel aspect, like people don't understand that being a college coach means you are also a recruiter, and there is no scouting staff. Like you are responsible for doing your own recruiting, your own scouting. How much are you on the road with that throughout the season in the summer?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely a commitment. Luckily I love it. I really do. I love watching games. I love traveling. But it is tough. I mean, I certainly miss, a lot of my kids' games, and, I'm gone, a decent amount throughout the year. I'm also lucky though, that there's a lot of high school hockey games where I'm just driving 20 minutes to go watch a game where, there's a lot of programs don't have that luxury, but the off season, there's, USA hockey stuff, obviously where all the coaches are at all the USA hockey stuff, recruiting from there. And there's all kinds of showcases, probably too many to be honest with you. But yeah, there's no lack of opportunity to see good players all around the country and in Canada.
That's what you said. Sorry, Ben, one more thing. There's so much going on right now. There's so many showcases. There's so many different things. There's so many from the boys' side to advisors and agents getting involved at such a young age. My message has always been for parents is like, in this day and age, your kid is not going to get missed. Like you are not going to get, they're going to be seen if they're good enough. Like you don't need to go out of your way to do, do I need to do every single event I'm invited to? No, probably not. Like pick and choose a little bit so you have some balance to your life and don't burn the kids out. I mean, I feel like that's such a common thing nowadays because there's so much going on in the youth hockey world.
Yeah, I mean, Carms, I couldn't agree more. It's one of those things where, if they're doing it, okay, I feel like I have to do it. And it kind of spirals out of control a little bit. And I don't know how it compares on the boys' side, but yeah, I mean, there is so much stuff on the girls' side where, I think kids feel pressure to be there because they know there's going to be college coaches there. And, fortunately there's a lot of great coaches though in the women's game that are mindful of that. And, trying to, make a little bit of changes where it benefits both the work-life balance for coaches and also, more importantly for the players so they don't get burnt out, like you mentioned.
Well, as we come down the stretch, Marty, we know you got a hard time, man. You're a family guy. You got to take care of things with your kids. So we got about 5 minutes left here. I have two more things. I'll hit you with this one first. One of the things Carmi and I like to do is once we kind of get near the end, we kind of put that bow on the show. And, it sounds to me like you had a pretty good feel of where you were going to go. You had your wife there. She was a huge part of your life and your decision and when you were playing. And obviously that's continued. But what would your advice be to some guys that might still be in the soup out there, man? And, maybe they're coming down the end. Maybe they're coming near the end. What do you say to them as they get ready to make a transition from being a pro athlete into everyday life?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing I would say is play as long as you can. People told me that, and I just think that's good advice. I mean, it's kind of funny. I was talking to an old buddy today who I played with in Hamburg, and he had retired. He living in Colorado, and I hadn't talked to him in a while. And well, what are you up to? And he's like, well, I signed a 2-month contract in Klagenfurt. So he's in Austria playing. And, it's just kind of one of those moments. Good for you. Keep, play as long as you can, as long as it works for your family. But no, I think, obviously it helps to try to think 2 steps ahead and be prepared. I guess if I could advice to myself, I certainly would, kind of pat myself on the shoulder and say, I'm glad you reached out to all those MIAC coaches when you did, kind of give yourself a good opportunity to get your foot in the door. I mean, even if you don't stay involved in coaching, there's so many ways to stay involved in hockey these days. And, but yeah, that's my gut answer is play as long as you can.
That's a good one.
And then, and then the last thing, and I'll let Carmi wrap us up here. You're obviously in good shape. You always were. You're skating, you're working with a team, but I know you wanted to give a shout out to one of your buddies that also helps you in that regard too in your life now, Marty.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I'm on the ice quite a bit, so lucky to kind of
Yep.
stay in shape that way. Every once in a while, I'll hop into a men's league skate or whatever. But yeah, I've also been going to a place called Sauna Strong in Linden Hills, Minneapolis. Yeah, super cool place with saunas and workout gym. And guy Harrison that runs it's doing a fantastic job. I've learned a ton about breath work and just how beneficial saunas can be. So that's kind of a little hidden gem in my life right now.
Sweet.
I might have to check that out. Linden Hills is right in my backyard. I'm right in the North Loop, Marty. So I'm
Oh,
not.
Carnes, you'll love it. You'd love it in there. A lot of hockey guys showing up in there too. So yeah.
Well, it's funny you bring up that breath work. Sorry, I know we got to wrap here in a sec, but that has become such a big thing. The breathing techniques that everybody does, and you flash back even 10 years ago, that wasn't a thing, or if it was very rare. You were looked at as like an oddball if you were doing stuff like that. But yeah, I've always been slightly curious about it. I'll be honest, I've never gone and looked at it, but I'm curious how that really affects, like you said, if you have anxiety or if you have headaches or you have, just daily stress and dealing with it. And it sounds like you're taking advantage of that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I certainly have kind of made that a part of my life now. And, in a day where not just hockey, but all sports where, everybody is big and strong and skilled and, works out like crazy in the summer. Maybe that's one of the things that separate the great players from the good players these days or something like that. I've Novak Djokovic, for instance, he credits, breath work and breathing as far as, staying calm in a 5-set match. I'm sure, all elite athletes these days have some sort of that in their game. So, like you said, Carnes, it wasn't, nobody really talked about it back in the day. And maybe if I would have figured it out long ago, I'd still be playing and we wouldn't be on this podcast right now. But I'm glad that it's kind of, I've always liked learning. It's a really interesting subject, and I'm going to continue to dive into it.
Well, I told my wife, like, so we have a condo down here. When we have a house eventually, there will be a sauna and cold tub room in there. I miss that.
Yeah.
So. Marty, great to see you again, man. It's been a long time. It's great to keep us there's so many guys we've had on, yourself included, that we were with, and really appreciate you doing this. Happy for your success, and keep on keeping on, man. Thanks for joining us here.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Carms. That was a lot of fun talking to you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Marty. We appreciate it.
All right, that'll do it for episode 20 of When the Game Ends. For Mike Carmen, Ben Holden, and our guest today in episode 20, Marty Sertich. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time with an all-new edition of When the Game Ends.